Welcome into Grimm's Gates of Horror. My name is Grimm, this is your new haven for all things horror movie related, and today I'm here to rank my top 10 A24 horror movies. So, over the weekend, the new A24 horror movie called Bring Her Back just came out, and I went to go see it, and I really enjoyed it, and it got me thinking, what are my top A24 horror movies? Because I know there's a lot. I like over 30 horror movies, and I plan to do a ranking in the future where I do all of them, but for now I'm just sticking with 10 just for now. And so this is what this video is going to be. And I think the first A24 horror movie that I saw was X, probably, and then when I started to get more into like movies and like horror movies in general, I went to go see Men, and then Talk to Me, and then I saw The Witch, which was my first Robert Eggers movie, I believe. So I've always been a fan of A24 horror movies ever since I saw X, and so I watched a lot of them. I watched some that I hadn't seen before. I'll tell you which ones those are, but these right here are my top 10. There's still some I have to see. Like, I still need to watch The Lighthouse, which is another Robert Eggers horror movie, but all that will be in another video somewhere down the line. So without further ado, let's get into this, and if you enjoy this ranking, make sure to drop a like and subscribe. So let's get into this. So coming in 10th place, we have The Witch. Now, so The Witch stars Anya Taylor-Joy as this movie is set in the 1630s New England, where the film follows a Puritan family, William, Catherine, and the daughter Thomasin, and their young children, who are banished from their settlement due to religious disputes. They establish a farm near a forest, but their lives unravel when their infant son Samuel mysteriously vanishes while under Thomasin's care. And then as the family struggles with failing crops, paranoia, and supernatural occurrences, tension rises, and Catherine blames Thomasin. And the young twins, the children, Mercy and Jonas, claim to speak to their ominous black goat, Black Phillip. And this movie really follows this family as the family's strict Puritan beliefs fuel their descent into hysteria, and it's mostly due to like their isolation from like everyone else. Like, it's just the family in the woods, and then there's just this witch running around terrorizing them, making them go crazy and think, is this supernatural or is this psychological? And the movie does blur the lines between the two. And the reason this movie is so low for me is because I felt like the movie is a slow burn type of movie, and it just drags for me. The big highlights for this movie for me are Anya Taylor-Joy. She delivers a breakout performance as Thomasin, and like she portrays a transformation from like an innocent girl to a figure of empowerment. And then we have Ralph Ineson, who I'm excited to see as Galactus in the upcoming Fantastic Four movie. It was cool to see him in this. I don't really know him from any other movies, but it was cool to see him in this. And I'm like, oh wait, he's casted as Galactus, so let me pay attention and see how he is acting. And just him and Kate Dickie bring just a raw intensity to the roles as the tormented parents. And then Harvey Scrimshaw, who like, I think he shines a lot in the one unsettling scene where he gets possessed by something, and just his performance there. And it's just, again, Eggers' meticulous attention to historical accuracy is what makes his movie so eye-catching and makes you like immersed. It's just the authentic dialogue and like the setting that like gives you that immersive experience that you get when you watch his movies. All down from like the natural lighting, the colors, and like just the sound design that he uses in all of his films. And for me, this is probably like my least favorite of the Robert Eggers movies I've seen, because my favorite is The Northman. I've really enjoyed Nosferatu as well. But yeah, this one, I still have to see The Lighthouse, so I can't comment on that one, but I know this one's probably like the lowest for me. And I think this is his first movie as well. I could be wrong on that, but I think it is. But yeah, so The Witch is in 10th place. Moving into 9th place, we have Death of a Unicorn. Now, Death of a Unicorn just came out this year, but it's a horror comedy from A24 that blends satire with supernatural elements and follows Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega as Elliot and Ridley, a father and daughter duo, who accidentally hit a unicorn while driving to Elliot's billionaire boss's mansion. And the unicorn's like properties, like its horn and its blood, soon become like the center of a dark, greed-fueled conflict, where this movie really taps into that eat the rich narrative, portraying the billionaire boss as like a self-destructive in their pursuit of power, which is really relevant nowadays. And It just critiques the corporate greed and blind ambition, showing how the elite, the people who are in power, exploit even the supernatural for personal gain. And the unicorn itself serves as a metaphor for like the purity and untapped potential, and is like contrasting with the selfish motives of the characters. And the people who stood out to me in this, I felt like this whole cast was typecasted, and they did what they could with their performances. But a lot of it just felt like they were also just having fun with this like idea and concept. Where we have Will Poulter, who delivers a great performance as like our cocky, rich like brat. And he adds layers of humor and tension to the film, as well as Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega. They bring the emotional depth to their father-daughter dynamic, but it just feels really generic with like the whole like unicorn gimmick going on. But their like relationship really shines when it comes to Ridley's skepticism and Mark Hoppus clashing against Elliot's and like his bosses. But where their relationship really shines is with Ridley's skepticism and Mark Hoppus, and then when it clashes like his with like her father's like submissiveness to his boss, and as he's trying to do what he can to get this job and to like do what he promised his wife and her mother to do, which is like take care of their daughter and like make sure she's like set for life basically. And so that's what he's trying to do to get this job. But it's like, when is enough when it comes to like morals and like greed? But I really enjoyed how Sharfman's direction perfectly balances like the horror and comedy, in my opinion, and it creates in creating a film that is both unsettling and darkly humorous, especially since this movie does pay homage a lot to Jurassic Park. That really stood out to me. And I like that they didn't use just like CGI in this movie. They used a mix of like practical and CGI, which again, practical is everything in horror movies to me. I just rewatched Friday the 13th, the original, and man, nothing beats like practical effects in my opinion. So yeah, I really like the themes that they had with like how corporate greed and how the rich like to exploit nature and like just drain and like exploit the innocent, and like how the rich like to exploit the innocent and like the poor. And like we see that how Ridley's connection with the unicorn represents the humanity side of that like argument, and I just really like how they represented that in this movie. But other than that, it just was a generic fun movie, not one to really take seriously. It was just a lot of fun, some good laughs, some great entertainment. So moving on to 8th place, we have X. Now I love the X Pearl. I'm not too much of a big fan of Maxxine. I thought Maxxine was disappointing, but X for me was my first A24 horror movie, I believe. It's what stood out to me and made me want to watch more A24 horror movies. And it's set in 1979, and the film follows a group of young filmmakers who travel to Texas to shoot an adult film. And they rent a guest house on the property of an elderly couple, Howard and Pearl. And as the shoot progresses, Pearl becomes fixated on Maxxine, the aspiring star, leading to a violent and terrifying night. And yes, this is a slasher, and his movie dives into how this old lady, she wants to be young again, and like she's jealous of Maxxine, who's basically being able to live the life that she wanted. And they really dive more into that once you watch Pearl, which is like takes place before this movie and follows the old lady, who is all played by Mia Goth, I should say. Mia Goth plays the old lady in this movie as she plays Maxxine, and then in the prequel she plays Pearl. Mia Goth is just amazing when it comes to the film. But this movie is also like a metafictional commentary on movies, as and it kind of like questions like who is watching who and what does it mean to be seen, as like we're watching this movie of like them filming this adult film, and then it's also the old lady watching them, but we're watching the old lady watch them. So it's really like who is watching who, and so I thought that was a cool little thing. There was another movie that did that. I'm trying to remember which movie it was. That I can't remember, but I remember there was like another movie that I watched that was like from like the 80s that did something similar to this, where it went off of like that thought of voyeurism, and like it was kind of like a social commentary on that. I can't remember what it was, but again, Mia Goth delivers such a standout like dual performance as she plays both Maxxine and Pearl, showcasing her like range and versatility as an actor, and especially like as she had to wear like prosthetic makeup to play Pearl. She was just amazing. And then we have Jenna Ortega again in this movie, and she doesn't have a big role, but I felt like this was one of her first like mature roles, so it was like kind of different from like her other ones, and like it's different from her role in Death of a Unicorn. It felt a lot more mature in that sense. And then we have Brittany Snow, and then we have Kid Cudi, also who bring strong performances, each embodying their roles with depth. And then I haven't seen a lot of T West's like directing work outside of this trilogy, but I can tell his direction is really calculated and like careful, and I love how he blends slasher with psychological depth within this movie alone, and his use of cinematography, the aspect ratios, and key visual details that enhance the film's eerie atmosphere. And you can just tell that this movie was heavily influenced by like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, as that is like a form of like exploitation in cinema. And the reason I put this movie so low is because I felt like it was a lot slower than like Pearl, for example. They're both kind of slow, but I feel like this movie, like, it just kind of like it also like kind of like just dragged for me like in the second act of the movie. So, but other than that, I felt like this movie was great. I think because I gave The Witch a B-, and I gave Death of a Unicorn a B-, B+. It's somewhere around that. I haven't fully decided on what I'm going to give Death of a Unicorn. It's either B+ or B-, but I know for sure X is an A-. So these aren't like low or anything. These are all I pretty much enjoy. And so going into the next one, we have Now Talk to Me. I felt was really like overrated when it first came out, but now that I watched it again, I can see why a lot of people like were hyping this up and everything. But to me, I still feel like there's way more better A24 horror movies, just horror movies in general. And Talk to Me is an Australian supernatural horror movie that's directed by two YouTubers, Danny and Michael Philippou. I hope I said their name correctly. And this is their directorial debut. And the story follows a group of teenagers who discover they can communicate with spirits using a mysterious severed and embalmed hand. And this movie really explores the three themes of grief, peer pressure, and denial, as Maya's inability to process her mother's death manifests into her obsession with the supernatural and playing this like party game, as this being able to see the spirits and like have them like possess you.
After 90 seconds.
Don't want to stay.
Party trick, and Mia becomes obsessed with it since her mother died recently, and it just leads her down a dangerous path. And the embalmed hand, for me, it kind of like serves as like a metaphor for like escapism. How people like to seek distractions to avoid confronting their pain, and I feel like that's what Maya does with this, to like try not to handle or like deal with the pain of losing her mother and go through the process of grief. And then the film also touches on the horrors of addiction, as the characters become increasingly reckless in the pursuit of supernatural experiences. And some other key themes that I got from this is like the
What did the hand feel like? It felt amazing. I could see and feel everything on the other side.
You want to partake in it, which leads to some really gruesome and like bad things happening within this movie. And like when you first watch this movie, like you don't expect it, and then it happens, and you're kind of like jaw drop. And I think Danny and Michael, the directors, they really do bring a fresh and visceral energy to the horror genre with this movie, as their background in YouTube filmmaking translates into dynamic and like a fast-paced storytelling with striking visuals. And then it's like the use of practical effects, which I already spoke about before. It just enhances its realism and making the horror sequences feel disturbingly. And then with the cinematography having like tight framing, and then the eerie lighting, it just amplifies the tension and unease that you feel when watching this movie. But then you have the performances from like Sophie Wilde, who plays Mia. Her performance is just a standout, and as she portrays her descent into grief and obsession with like just a raw intensity. And then you have Joe Bird's portrayal of Riley, who's like the younger brother, and who is like basically like possessed for the second half of the movie, I believe it is. And because this movie like kind of like has like a shift where it goes from like a party, how like for like the first half they use this as like a party trick, a party game, and then it just transitions into a supernatural psychological horror almost, which I felt like the blend and like the transition was really smooth and it felt natural. And it's just Joe Bird's like portrayal is just, especially during like when he's possessed, are just deeply unsettling, and it makes you like feel uncomfortable while you see him on screen. I just felt like during like the second half, like look, maybe like in like the third act is when this movie kind of lost me, and I just like I had trouble like paying attention to it. I don't know why. It just felt like I felt like the first and second half were great, but then in the third act towards the ending, I was just I just like kind of like because I've seen this movie before, but I just felt like it didn't like catch me as like the first two acts did. I don't know. I don't know how to really explain it. It just lost my attention a little bit. I don't know if it's because of like the supernatural psychological elements to it. I don't know if it's because like the psychological elements just didn't grab me like other psychological movies do, but I think for that is why this movie is a little low, and why it's in 6th place, but 10, 9, 8, 7. Oh no, 7th place. But yeah, with that, going to 1, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. Going to 6th place, we have Hereditary. Now, the first time I watched this movie was for this video, and I literally just watched it this morning, and I actually watched Midsommar for the first time. But it's not in my top 10, I'll just say that. But I did watch Midsommar for the first time, and I thought it was really confusing. I'm so glad it wasn't in my top 10 because I would not know how to like describe it or review it. I feel like I have to watch it a couple more times before I can talk about it, because it's just very, I wouldn't say confusing, but it's really complex. I'll say that. And the same goes for Hereditary. Hereditary is a chilling psychological horror film directed by Ari Aster, and this is his feature directorial debut. And follows the Graham family, who are haunted by sinister forces after the death of their secretive grandmother. And the film is like a slow burning descent into madness, blending supernatural horror with deeply unsettling family trauma. And the story revolves around Annie Graham, a miniature artist, her husband Steve, and their children Peter and Charlie. After Annie's mother Ellen dies, strange occurrences begin to plague the family. And then when Charlie dies in a horrific accident, Annie spirals into grief and discovers dark secrets about her mother's involvement in a cult. And then the movie just keeps on building up to a terrifying climax, where I did not expect where this movie took me, and I just did not expect this movie to take such a turn that it did, and that's why I felt like this is a little bit higher. And I did resonate a lot with like the themes of this movie, as they deal a lot with like grief and trauma, and how loss and unresolved trauma can manifest in destructive ways, which we see within this movie when they through like the spirits and like the strange occurrences that happen. Then they also blur the lines between psychological distress and actual paranormal events that go on, and you don't know what is going on, because they talk about how the grandmother was diagnosed with DID, and I believe they say that Annie's brother, I think, had schizophrenia and killed himself, and then the grandmother found him like when they were younger. And so if you really do ask, so does the son and then the mother also have these mental illnesses, or is this like supernatural? And so you kind of like ask yourself those questions as you're watching, or at least that's what I found myself doing. And when the reveal actually happens, where we find out that the grandmother is part of a cult, and then the friend that Annie met at these grief meetings that she goes to talk about her grief and everything, she finds out that the one woman that she befriended was actually part of that cult with her mother. And so it just seems like the characters were just doomed from the start. And as you feel like there's like some hope and like that things are getting better, just that sense of helplessness just comes back, and just like, okay, like, and it just feels like they've been doomed from the start of the movie. And I feel like what really makes this movie work as well is the performances we get from Toni Collette, who delivers such a powerhouse of a performance as Annie, portraying grief, rage, and terror with like a raw intensity. And then you have Alex Wolff, who I love both the Wolff brothers. I always get mixed up between the two of them, I'm not gonna lie, but they're always such like a great presence whenever I see them in a movie. And yeah, that goes for this one as well, as Alex Wolff plays Peter, and he captures the emotional breakdown of a teenager caught in a nightmare, where basically he's like responsible for his sister being killed, his younger sister, and so he has to deal with that guilt, and like we see him like be like haunted by that throughout the movie. Then we have Millie Shapiro, who plays Charlie, the young sister, where she also like serves as like the emotional anchor of the movie up until like she is killed, and like you just feel that guilt that Peter feels, and then you also feel like this uncomfortability and unsettled feeling throughout the rest of the movie after her death, because it's like she's not even on screen, but like because of like the idea of like, I believe she was like 13 years old, and just her being killed in such a way that she did, it just like scars you, or like just leaves such an imprint on you throughout the rest of the movie. And like her presence is still known after that. But yeah, I do think this is the best Ari Aster movie that I've seen. I don't know what other movies. I think he has a new one coming out called Eddington. I'm not sure about that one. I just heard about it. But out of all of them, Midsommar, Beau is Afraid, and this one, I feel like this one is the best. His direction is just really calculated, and like the slow camera movements that he uses, and like the lingering shots, and like the dollhouse set designs that he uses, it just creates such an oppressive atmosphere. And I really enjoyed the sound design that he uses as well with the haunting score. I don't know who like did it, but it just amplifies that dread that you feel. And then there's just like this shift in the movie that feels so natural, where it kind of goes from like a psychological horror to a full-blown supernatural terror movie, where it feels like a Conjuring or Paranormal Activity type, not a Paranormal Activity, but like a Conjuring type of movie. And in like the final act of the movie, and I love how like, because a lot of times in a lot of movies, it's really easily to like mess it up and make it not feel natural and like kind of feel like disconnected almost. But Ari Aster was able to pull it off and execute it. And Hereditary is in 10, 9, 8, 7, is in 6th place. Moving into 5th place, we have Pearl. Now, Pearl is a psychological horror movie. It's not like a slasher like X was. It's more of a psychological horror and like kind of like a character study on the character of Pearl, who is played by Mia Goth, and who dreams of escaping her isolated farm life in 1918 Texas to become a movie star. However, her aspirations clash with her oppressive home life and violent tendencies, leading to a descent into madness. And Pearl delves into the themes of trying to escape, like where you feel trapped in like your town where you live, and like trying to escape that and like go out and like see the world. But then, and then the film also critiques like the Hollywood dream, showing how Pearl's obsession with fame becomes a dangerous coping mechanism for her, and it also explores like the loneliness and isolation as Pearl struggles under her strict mother's control while yearning for a life beyond the farm, trying to get out and see the world. And the movie also has like this unique visual style inspired by like the classics like The Wizard of Oz, and it just really contrasts with its grim narrative with where like, you see her killing, and like just the vibrant blood that you see when she kills someone. It kind of like, it makes you feel giddy, like for me at least, seeing like the bright colors, the vibrant Wizard of Oz like colors, and then just seeing her stab someone and like the blood just goes everywhere, and it's just so bright. I love it. And he kind of like blends horror with like a melodrama to create, and it's used in a way to create such a cinematic experience. Like I said, the use of like these nostalgic and bright colors and visuals put next to like Pearl's violent mental unraveling just enhance the unsettling tone within this movie. And like the way the movie is able to build tension effectively in a disturbing yet tragic character study. I feel like a lot of people, like if you watch this movie, you're gonna fall in love with Pearl, and like you're going to like stan her, like, and then you have like the whole meme of like, I'm a star. I love that meme so much. Like, and then just Mia Goth is like the big standout in this movie, as like her portrayal of Pearl's descent into madness and just like throughout the movie, she just has this chilling like vibe to her, this intense like unsettled vibe. And then she has this monologue near the end of the film, and you can just see that she brings such raw emotion to this like monologue. And then we also have Superman, David Cornsweet, which was crazy to see him in here because Superman comes out like later this month, which I'm excited for. But and then we have Tandy Wright, who plays Pearl's mother, who just help add depth to like the film's psychological tension, as like he's someone who hasn't seen like her other side, but then she brings him to the farm and he sees like there's weird stuff around, and he's like something's not right here. He tries to get out of there, but once he tries to leave, Pearl is like, why are you leaving me? Why does everyone leave me? Blah, and then like kills him, and it's like, why couldn't you get out? And yeah. But yeah, Pearl is probably one of my favorite A24 horror movies, one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I didn't expect to like it more than X, but I do. And it's funny because I expected to like Maxxine more than both of these movies, but out of all three. But I ended up liking Pearl a lot more, which I don't know what that says about me, but I really enjoyed like Pearl as a character and like Mia Goth's like portrayal of her. But 10, 9, Going to fourth place, we have Y2K. Now, I knew I was gonna like this movie from the beginning, from when I first saw the trailer or like any promotional of it. This Y2K is a horror comedy and directed by Kyle Mooney in his directorial debut. And this movie blends late 90s nostalgia with a like a post-apocalyptic sci-fi premise. Imagine a world where the infamous Y2K bug causes technology to turn against humanity. And there's been people who said that they don't remember this happening, which I can't speak on because this was before my time. I was born in 2003, so I don't know. I didn't know anything about this before this movie was made. But basically, the story follows a socially awkward teenager and his friends as they navigate New Year's Eve 1999. While attending a New Year's Eve party, they witness technology become sentient and start like killing humanity, leading to some gruesome deaths, like a microwave melting Kid Leroy's head off. Which, yeah, that is such a crazy sentence to say, but it happened. And then like just drilling into skulls with like a power drill, and as this unfolds, Eli and a small group of survivors must fight back against the rogue machines, culminating into a battle against an AI entity known as the Amalgamation, yeah. But this film really plays on like the fears of technology gaining consciousness, especially with like the rise of AI right now. It's just relevant for like a time like this, and the concept just like really with me, like for like today and like stuff going on. And then you also have like this nostalgia factor to this movie, as there's like heavy references to late 90s pop culture, from like dial-up internet to VHS tapes, and like you get like Rachel Zegler like making an Eminem reference, calling one of the other characters some shade, which was crazy to me because I'm a big Eminem fan and I'm a big Rachel Zegler fan as well. But like you get, and then we also get the cameo of what's his from Limp Bizkit. I don't listen to them, but some Fred Durst, yeah, that's his name. Which I didn't look for, but I understand like the hype around that. Not gonna lie, when I first saw him in the movie, I was like, is that the guy from Smash Mouth? And I was like, wait, did he make All Star? But my younger sister, she was like, no, that he's from Limp Bizkit. I'm like, oh, like I probably shouldn't have said that because now people are going to attack me. But that's who he was at first. Please don't attack me. I like that was before my time. Anyways, yeah, this movie is a coming of age story, as Eli struggles with his self-confidence and has like romantic feelings for Rachel Zegler's character, and it just has like that emotional depth to this chaotic premise and like the chaos that's going on around them. And this movie is like packed. It has Jaden Martell, Rachel Zegler, Julian Dennison, who you might know from Deadpool 2. It has the Kid Leroy. It has Lachlan Watson from the Chucky series. It has, like I said, Fred Durst. It has, what's his name? He plays Chad in Scream. I forgot his name. But the cast is stacked in this movie, and while the performances are solid, the film's absurd tone makes it for like, I feel like because the movie is so fast and everything, it's kind of hard to like feel in between the characters. I remember when Julian Dennison's character dies, and like they try to have like emotional moment between Eli and him, there isn't like enough time for us to like really feel connected to these characters to really get emotional. And it's like you kind of want to, because you're like, no, I like that actor, I don't want him to die so early on, and like their friendship feels just so genuine, and like, but it's like you don't really get emotional. Like, it's not really that, like, it doesn't really feel that, you don't really get that strong connection that you feel with like a character that if he died at the end of the movie, then that would be different. But no, he died like kind of at the first act, basically. But the two characters that really do make like have like a big connection are like Jaden and Rachel's characters, especially since Rachel is known for more of her dramatic roles. It really goes well with like Jaden's like kind of shy and like awkward like character, because Rachel plays like the cool popular girl, and then but seeing Rachel kind of like bring on like a more comedic approach to this movie, I felt was really good. I feel like I hope she gets more roles in the future, because after all the Snow White stuff, that was just so dumb and stupid, and she's such a wonderful actress. I've loved her in West Side Story, Shazam 2, even though nobody watched it. Yeah, I've just loved all the performances that she's had, and I hope she does more horror. I hope she does more comedy in the future, because I feel like she would be great in like a comedy movie. But yeah, I think what this movie really made for me is like the chaos that's going on, just the relationship between Jaden Martell's character and Rachel Zegler's character, I felt like I related to, and just this movie was just a fun time. I know it's not going to be high on everyone's list, but it's high on mine, and that's why this is my list. But also, while I have it fresh in my mind, let me know what you think about these movies down below. What A24 horror movies would be in your top 10? What would your ranking be of all of the A24 horror movies? I like to hear which one's your favorite, which ones you don't agree with. Let me know down in the comments. And yeah, going into third place, we have Bring Her Back. And this one is a new A24 horror movie, and I going into this movie, I did not know a lot about it. I think I watched the trailer like once, and that's about it. I didn't really remember anything going into it, but probably this is in top 3, so it's like one of my new favorites. And the story follows Andy and Piper, who are siblings who are orphaned after their father's sudden death, and Piper is blind and relies heavily on Andy to like get her places. But their fragile world is upended when they are placed in the care of Laura, who is a former social worker who was a social worker for like 20 years, and basically she's like the foster mother of Andy and Piper now, and she's also grieving the loss of her own daughter. While Laura initially seems kind, her true intentions soon emerge, leading to a terrifying struggle for survival. And this movie really dives into a few different themes. One of them being the grief and trauma, as how the movie dives into how loss can warp reality and drive people to desperate actions. As I'm not going to spoil this movie for people who haven't seen it yet, but basically this movie really dives into those themes where like someone who is desperate for something, especially like when it comes to grief and trauma, like their brain can warp their reality and drive them to like destructive and desperate actions. And then throughout the movie we have Laura, who gaslights and manipulates Andy, making him doubt his own sanity, and kind of like makes him think like there's like some instances where like she'll hit Piper and make Piper think that it was Andy when it wasn't, and like basically just use and weaponize his own trauma against him. And then there's like some things where like she'll pee in a cup and then go in his room, pour it on him to make him think that he peed his pants in bed or something like that. That was kind of weird, but I feel like this movie does well at like showing the horrors and like the reality of like what goes on in foster homes, and like how abusive foster parents can be when unchecked. Since this person was a social worker for 20 years, so like they thought she was trusted, she was sane, she was okay. But the reality is, and I grew up watching the show called The Fosters, which was on ABC Family. I highly recommend that show. It was like the first show that like introduced me to like LGBTQ representation in TV shows and movies. And like I don't know why people made such a big deal, but I thought it as a kid watching that. I'm not gonna get into that because this video is probably gonna be long anyways. So yeah, I'm not gonna talk about that. But that show really touched on like the abuse that goes into foster homes a little bit. But this movie really this is like the first movie that I've seen that's really pretty much touched upon that. And because a lot of like foster parents, they'll just do it for the paycheck, and they don't really care about the children that they foster or anything like that. They just care about the paycheck, and like they'll like neglect and like abuse these children. And yeah, it's just really sad. It's really real, and just knowing that and like watching this movie just made you feel uncomfortable, and like this movie might trigger some people. So I will say keep that in mind when watching Bring Her Back. But yeah, I feel like this movie really handled those scenes really well, and I cried like 2 times watching this movie because there's just 2 moments where you just feel really like raw emotion. And Billy Barat, who plays Andy, delivers such a gripping performance and portrays like the vulnerability and resilience of his character. Then we have Sora Wong, who shines as Piper, bringing warmth and strength to her character. And then Sally Hawkins, who plays Laura, she's just so haunting in this role, and she balances like the sympathy of like trying to hide how sadistic she is, and then she just switches to like the menace in a deeply unsettling way. I feel like the Filippo brothers crafted such a visually intense but also emotionally harrowing experience. Their use of like visuals and then eerie sound design and unsettling pacing just keeps you on edge throughout the whole movie. And I remember some people saying that they thought there's like some unsettling moments within this movie, and I would just say keep in mind, like, when going to see this movie, that there are some really unsettling and like really disturbing moments, and yeah, I was surprised by how far they took it in this movie. But going to second place, we have These Bodies. Now, I've talked about this movie just not that long ago, and The Bodies is a 2022 black comedy horror film directed by Helene Regine and written by Sarah DeLappe, and this is actually based on a story, and the film follows a group of wealthy young friends who gather at a mansion for a hurricane party, only for their night of drinking and games to spiral into paranoia and violence. And the story centers around Bee, a young woman who accompanies her girlfriend Sophie to a party hosted by Sophie's childhood friend David, and the group decide to play a murder mystery game called Bodies. But when David is found dead outside with his throat slashed, the friends turn on each other, suspecting one another of being the killer. And yeah, the film offers a sharp critique of Gen Z culture, particularly the reliance of social media and digital validation, and it explores themes of paranoia, privilege, performative wokeness, and the fragility of friendships. And in an era dominated by online interactions, the characters' inability to communicate effectively without their phones highlights their emotional detachment and self-absorption. You have the ensemble cast, including Amanda Stenberg, Maria Bakalova, Chase Sue Wonders, Rachel Sennett, Lee Pace, Pete Davidson, and they all just deliver stand-up performances in their own, but it's really their banter with each other that really makes them stand out. You have Rachel Sennett with her comedic timing, but I feel like they all do well with that. And then Pete Davidson, I feel like in every Pete Davidson movie, he just dies so quickly. It's just so funny to me how that happens. Like the Suicide Squad, this movie. I'm trying to think what other movies he dies quickly. I don't know. But yeah, the direction with this movie is just really stylish and immersive, using tight framing and dim lighting to heighten the claustrophobic tension as they're stuck in this mansion. And the film's satirical tone is balanced with genuine suspense, making it a unique entry in the horror genre. And the use of naturalistic dialogue and improvisation from the actors just adds such authenticity of the characters' interactions. Overall, with that in mind, there's nothing really to complain about this movie. I thought it was perfect. Bye Bye Bodies, I love you, it's like chef's kiss. And then moving into first place, I was surprised this was higher than Bodies, but I also love this movie so much, and it is Heretic. Heretic is a psychological horror film directed by Scott Beck and Brian Woods. And this movie stars Hugh Grant, Sophie Thatcher, and Chloe East. And the story follows two young Mormon missionaries, Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton, who visit the home of an eccentric man, Mr. Reed. What begins as a seemingly routine religious discussion quickly turns into a terrifying ordeal when they realize they are trapped inside his house. And this film really explores themes of faith, manipulation, and existential horror, as Hugh Grant as Mr. Reed has these monologues throughout the movie that dissect the nature of organized religion, questioning its authenticity and comparing it to like a game of Monopoly, how all the religions seem to be really similar or like the same, and like he really does like challenge and like question the authenticity of like religions. And then the missionaries throughout the movie, they struggle to maintain their beliefs in the face of such psychological torment as they're trapped in this guy's house, and just highlights the fragility of faith when confronted with extreme circumstances. The movie also delves into the idea of control and deception as Reed's house becomes almost like a metaphorical prison where belief itself is weaponized. But we see, what really like stood this movie out to me is how you have Mr. Reed on one side giving like this great argument, and then you also have mostly Sophie Thatcher's character and like the beginning giving such great like points and like defending their religion, their beliefs. And I feel like this movie has such a great stance where it's like kind of like in the middle, and like there's really no like conclusion where like one side or the other side is right. This movie stays neutral in that argument, which I think is like the better choice within like movies like this. Now, but yeah, I think Beck and Woods, the directors, they craft a tense claustrophobic atmosphere within this movie using minimal locations, like just like the house and like the rooms within the house, and then eerie lighting to heighten the suspense. And then I really love how in the beginning we have a little bit of time with them before they get to Mr. Reed's house, and it kind of like makes you see like what the outside is like, and like makes you see them out and about. And then once they're trapped in the house, you're like you kind of like also get immersed into that claustrophobic and that tight, stuck like feeling, like you feel trapped as well with these girls. And just that use of like the minimal locations and like the eerie lighting within the house is just used so well to heighten the suspense. And then the movie moves quite fast as well, and like keeps you on the edge of your seat, with each revelation in this movie escalating the horror. And then directors also employ symbolism and visual storytelling, such as the recurring the recurring use of doors representing choices and belief systems. And then you have the performances from Hugh Grant, who delivers a chilling performance as Mr. Reed. I feel, and if horror movies were allowed in the Oscars, I feel like Hugh Grant would have gotten some nomination because he was great in this movie. I feel like he deserves some award for this movie. His ability to shift from such a friendly neighbor to a menacing captor adds layers to the character. And then you have Sophie Thatcher, who I love her in Yellow Jacket's companion, the Boogeyman, in the Book of Boba Fett. And then I saw she was in Maxxine for a little bit as well. I've loved everything she's done so far. She hasn't disappointed at all. And then Chloe East, I don't know if I know her from anything, but they both just bring such emotional depth to their roles, effectively conveying fear, resilience, and doubt as their characters navigate the psychological horror unfolding around them. And they try to like keep their beliefs and like challenge Hugh Grant's character on that. But yeah, Heretic is in first place. I really want to get these movies on. Well, Heretic, but I have so I need to get Heretic. I hope bring her back. When it comes to physical media, I really need to get Heretic though. But yeah, I hope y'all did enjoy this review. But yeah, that's it. That's my ranking of the top 10. That's the ranking of my top 10 A24 horror movies. Hope you did enjoy. If you did, please drop a like. Subscribe if you are new and join the Grimpire, and turn post on get notified when I do post again. All my socials will be down in the description below. I have my Blue Sky down there, my Instagram. That's where I'm mostly active, and then my TikTok as well. I plan to post more on my TikTok soon, so stick around for that. I also have my Twitch down there where I do stream sometimes, so if you'd like to follow me there, you should get notified when I do go live whenever. I'd also like some feedback. Let me know what you think. I'd also like some feedback. Let me know what you like about my videos, what I'm doing right, what I can improve on, what movies you'd like to see me review. I plan to do another video in the future. I believe Neon is releasing another horror movie later this year called Together with Dave Franco. I plan to do a ranking of all the Neon movies coming out when that movie comes out, so stick around for that if you're interested in that. And again, after watching what I need to for the next video, I'm planning to watch the rest of the A24 horror movies and do an all-time ranking of all of those movies at some point. But yeah, hope you did enjoy, and I would recommend checking out all these movies right now. I'll have links down below so you can check them out yourself. So check out The Witch. Death of a Unicorn, X. Just check all these movies out right now.